Damn it, Janet, stop charging by the hour.
Hi there, everyone. This is Janet Gershon-Siegel from Semantic Shenanigans, and today I've got another extra for you. This extra is actually, this is probably going to be a part 1 of 2, although I'm not sure when the second part's going to come out. It's about fanfiction follies and kind of how they collide with law and society. One of the things that you should know about both me and Shanna is that we both write fanfiction, or at least we had, and actually that's the way we met. So fanfiction's kind of near and dear to us, but we're both well aware that fanfiction's got its issues because the writers, obviously, they collide with intellectual property holders. We've got a bunch of cases on this, all sorts of articles. So once again, this is going to be more than one post. Now, to step back a little bit, fanfiction has a really great place for new writers. It's a really good springboard to writing because you don't have to create the world, you don't have to build it, the characters are fully formed. So as a writer, instead, you've got these really big, juicy prompts, which are essentially almost always you either are looking to fill in the missing pieces or for a concurrent story or the backstory or maybe what happened after the curtain went down. People love putting together fanfiction. In particular, they really love it for shows and episodes that they really don't like, such as the These Are the Voyages episode, which is the closer for Star Trek Enterprise. However, eventually, fanfiction writers may want to go further, and actually, I'm one of them. One of the big reasons why I don't write fanfiction anymore, or not so much anymore, is because I've become an author, and so I can't sell it. So I want something I can sell, and of course, something that I can create on my own, because I feel that's more of a spreading of my wings. It's harder to do, and I want something that's more challenging. Now, professional authors, let's talk a bit about how they feel about fan fiction. I want to start with George R.R. Martin. George R.R. Martin, who of course is the author of Game of Thrones and everything that goes along with that series, he's achieved phenomenal success. However, he also seems to have some writer's block. He seems to be having some finishing issues. And let me tell you, I understand exactly where he's coming from with that. Sometimes it's very hard to let go of your characters. And in Mr. Martin's case, he's probably also in something of a bind because there's so many people who are looking for what they consider to be this perfect epic ending. And if you don't write this perfect epic ending, then people are going to be disappointed. Now, back in 2010, he had a LiveJournal account, which I think he still got, and he came out rather squarely against fan fiction. He was actually talking a bit about another author, Diana Garibaldi. I think I said her name wrong, by the way. Sorry. She had actually done this first, and so he wanted to comment and kind of bolster what she was saying. For him, a lot of it centered around permission. He felt that fanfickers were co-opting characters in situations without the creator's consent or permission. And so his basic beef was, you should have asked me. But the thing is, he wouldn't have said yes if people had asked him. He said at the time that he wrote in some shared universes, and in those there was permission. But the truth is, when he talked about these shared universes, he made it clear that he had the final say in everything from dialogue to situations. So yeah, it's a shared universe in some ways, but that's really not equal footing at all. That sounds a lot more like if you ever read the Nancy Drew novels, Carolyn Keene. I don't think Carolyn Keene was ever actually a real person. It may have been just a stable of writers who were using just the one pseudonym and all writing for this particular franchise. So it seems that Mr. Martin, even in his shared universes, wants to kind of almost have a stable of writers who will answer to him, and that he's got the final say. Now, granted, this is his baby, and he's the one who owns it, and he's the big gorilla, and in terms of success. So he's going to have a very big say in this stuff. But if you think that these writers are on equal footing with him, you'd be sorely mistaken. He also talked a bit about monetization, which I'm going to get to in a moment, and he felt that really crossed the line when people try to monetize fan fiction. However, he did get a bit confused when it came to copyright and trademark, because he was talking about Edgar Rice Burroughs and H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft apparently died in poverty, according to Martin, allowing everybody to use his creations and play in the Cthulhu sandbox. But Edgar Rice Burroughs died a rich man because he protected his copyright. Now, first off, this is just plain wrong in the legal sense, because trademark is a defend it or lose it kind of situation. But copyright can be defended more at the IP holder's leisure. This is something of an oversimplification, but trademark requires that you just hop to it really fast. But copyright, you can go a bit slower, at least as of the writing of the blog post and of the recording of this extra. So Martin's no lawyer. That same year, a commenter named Nick Mamatis responded. And first thing he did was he corrected Martin on copyright versus trademark. But then he also addressed the question of Burroughs versus Lovecraft and the money versus love of characters, love of fiction dynamic, which Martin had set up. So according to Mamatis, Lovecraft died in poverty and didn't control his copyrights, but it was for the following three reasons. Number one, he didn't actually own the rights to begin with. At the time when he was writing, the publishing magazines often held the rights, and that was nothing new, and there was nothing different for H.P. Lovecraft. Number two, the guy lived during the Great Depression, which of course drove and kept a lot of people in poverty, so Lovecraft was just one of many people. And finally, number three, Lovecraft himself was so flaky, he couldn't market himself or even hold a job, so of course that also contributed to his poverty. The next professional author I want to take a look at is Anne Rice. It used to be that you would always hear that Anne Rice would never allow her work to be fanfic, like on fanfiction.net. They would say, no, you can't use Anne Rice characters. You can't write about that. However, according to an article written by Metro UK in 2012, Rice said, and I quote, "I got upset about 20 years ago because I thought it would block me," she says. "However, it's been very easy to avoid reading any, so live and let live. If I were a young writer, I'd want to own my own ideas. But maybe fan fiction is a transitional phase. Whatever gets you there, end quote. I think this is a great, mature attitude, and I agree with her in a big way. I really see where she's coming from. So much like New York Times bestselling author Dayton Ward, Dayton is a Star Trek tie-in writer. Rice doesn't want to read your or anybody else's fan fiction, and neither does Ward. For Rice, she doesn't want it to perhaps knock her into a writer's block spiral, take her out of the moment. For Ward, it's instead to keep from accidentally poaching somebody else's ideas. I think those are really good concepts as to why they don't want to read your fan fiction. But neither of them is too upset about it. As for Rice's statement that perhaps it's a transitional phase, I think that's a really good idea, and I think it's a smart one because this is precisely what happened with me. I think we need more writers in the world, not less. And so if you get a leg up to start because you're originally writing fan fiction, hey, more power to you, but long as you don't stay in fan fiction land forever and you strike out on your own when you want to start making money, when you want to start expanding your horizons, then what the hell, there's no harm to it. However, then there's Cassandra Clare and plagiarism. Fanfiction, of course, skirts copyright issues, if not outright tramples them much of the time. But what happens when fanfiction is also coupled with plagiarism? Because there's one thing when, let's say, like I said, I write a sequel to These Are the Voyages. That's one thing. But what happens when I lift paragraphs out wholesale? Because that's apparently what happened with Cassandra Clare. According to fanlore.org wiki, they say that Claire was banned from fanfiction.net in 2006. Her Harry Potter fanfiction, the Draco Trilogy, evidently pretty much wholesale copied great swaths from Pamela Dean's The Hidden Land. Now, I urge you to check out the fanlore article because it'll be a lot easier for you to see, because they set the two sections side by side. The resemblance seems to be rather obvious, at least to me. But again, they may be cherry picking what they're seeing. So I urge you to look at this with a fair eye, without a jaundiced eye. And, maybe this is the only paragraph that's like this. And if that's the case, well, then, it's probably fairly innocent. And after all, as I've said in the extra about music, with pop culture, we tend to get stuff stuck in the back of our heads. And maybe that's what happened with Cassandra Clare. It's not impossible. Finally, let's talk a bit about attempts at monetization. Now, it seems to be that you can often skate by on fanfiction as long as you don't try to make any money. But what happens when you try to make money? And then it gets really interesting. So let's first start with 2006. So it's over 10 years ago. Lori Jareo and her Star Wars fanfiction. Interestingly enough, blogger Nick Mamadas shows up again. Instead, this time he's talking, or rather they're quoting him on Scalzi.com. They say in 2006, this fanfiction writer, Lori Jareo, tossed her works onto Amazon and tried to sell them there. Now, keep in mind, this is long before Kindle Direct Publishing. So apparently there was an author interview for Jareo, and it included the following exchange, and I quote this. Question: having set another hope in an already existing universe, I find myself wondering if there was any concern on your part regarding copyrights. Answer: no, because I wrote this book for myself. This is a self-published story and is not a commercial book. Yes, it is for sale on Amazon, but only my family, friends, and acquaintances know it's there, end quote. Now, as Nick Mamadas noted, you don't just put something on Amazon and then get to call it non-commercial. So even back in 2006, Jareo had to have known that Amazon is 100% commercial. How could you look at Amazon? How can you think about Amazon as for anything other than a commercial venture? And in addition, over 10 years ago, Jareo could have really easily done the following. Number one, she could have sent her family either a Word doc or a PDF, perhaps, giving them her fiction, giving them access to her fiction. That's one. And if they wanted to pay for it and send her a few dollars under the table, nobody would have noticed. Number two possibility is maybe she could have created a members-only website or a blog which required a password and then give out the password to only a few people. That's one. That's another possibility. Now, I don't think that Facebook was really quite as large as it is now, but somebody looking to do something like this now could really easily create a private secret group on Facebook, just invite their family and friends there, toss their stuff in as either posts or as files, and call it a day. Finally, let's look at a Kickstarter for Captain America fanfiction anthology. To be honest, I have got to tell you that I have no idea why this project has not yet generated a lawsuit, but it's possible that it will, and if it does, of course, we will be following it. On Kickstarter, there is a project for an anthology called Not Without You. This is a campaign to publish a fanfiction anthology of Captain America, Winter Soldier / and nope, I'm not joking, folks. As of the writing of the blog post and the recording of this extra, the campaign had raised over $80,000 and had almost 2,000 backers. Now, We Shall See If Not Without You gets the Axanar treatment. Now, for those who may not recall or really didn't know before, Axanar was a Star Trek fan film that sort of spilled over its banks, let's just say, and raised over $1.4 million. And then what was produced was not really a full fan film, and there were lots of questions of copyright, and the parties were paying themselves salaries according to their own financial information, and so they were sued for infringement. And the case wended its way through the federal courts in California for over a year, and we do have plenty of blog posts on that on our site, and there's also on the G&T show site. If you have any questions about Axanar, please feel free to send me a note via the Contact Us page if you'd like. But be that as it may, Not Without You, it does seem to be sort of a magnitude lower in terms of number of backers and amount of money raised. So Marvel might be taking a wait and see attitude, just to, and maybe Marvel's got a number in their heads where they say, okay, well, if it hits 100,000, that's when we're going to start calling lawyers. That's when we're going to start to send DMCA takedown notices. I don't know. I'm obviously not privy to what goes on in their legal department, but it would surprise me a great deal if this isn't at least on their radar, and I imagine that it is. So finally, we do have more about fanfiction, the law, and society, and how they all collide. So these fanfiction follies are going to continue with another post and another extra sometime in the future. So once again, this is Janet Gershon-Siegel for Semantic Shenanigans Extras. Thanks so much for listening.
Music provided by Invocation Array. Send mail to hosts@semanticshenanigans.com. Follow us on Twitter at 2shenanigans. That's the number, not the word. 2shenanigans. On Facebook, you can find us at Semantic Shenanigans. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Semantic Shenanigans. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Semantic Shenanigans.